So, hi, I'm going to whiz through at possibly even faster than Owen's pace. Think of this as a podcast on maybe 1.5 speed. I'm here to talk about architecting for outcomes. So a little bit about me. I was at Barclays for 15 years. This is why I know a whole bunch of people here already from there. I did a Brexit escape to Copenhagen. I now work for Saxo Bank. And a few years ago, I was honoured for John Smart here to invite me to write a chapter for Sooner, Safer, Happier, which, do we have any copies left? I think we're out, actually. No, they've all gone, sorry. But you can buy the paperback. It's now out on Amazon. So John asked a question here, I think 4 years ago, this question, what are you optimizing for? Now, I'm going to talk about what architecture is optimizing for. Traditionally, enterprise architects have been asked to optimize for some, frankly, quite weird things. Standardization and consistency. Hey, guys, I need you to swap your source code control system because my KPI is for there to be only one. Does that help the business? Does it help our customers? Don't know, my KPI is for there to be only one source code control system. Predictive planning, cost reduction, these are not the outcomes you should be looking for, you should be architecting for. There's some newer ones like, hey, let's get everybody to cloud, or Kubernetes, or microservices. Do these help our customers or our business? Probably not. So we think that the outcomes you should be optimizing for are 5 balanced outcomes. Better value, sooner, safer, and happier. Better is quality, sooner is flow. Safer is minimum viable compliance. It's agile, not fragile. Security, privacy, compliance, regulatory. And happier, one of the most important ones, certainly one of the most important balancing factors. It's happier customers, it's happier colleagues, citizens, and climate, because all of the rest shouldn't be done at any cost. Everybody here, I hope, knows this, that this is why we're here. The way that high-performing organizations deliver change has changed itself. In the 2000s or the 90s or the 80s, we used to do this thing. We used to spend months planning, then months coding, and then throw something over the wall to a test team, and then throw it over to another team to release, and then some poor people at the end of the chain got to own the system forever. That's not, obviously, how we work anymore. We deliver changes faster, and on top of that, we learn with feedback. Our friend, the infinity loop that we keep seeing, time after time. We can deliver change in days or hours, and we have a team that collaborates, not a bunch of silos. What we've observed is that some of the architecture teams, some of the more senior architecture teams are stuck in the past and stuck in the left. So I'm going to talk about just one of those 5 outcomes today and talk about architecting for flow. In the 40s, Winston Churchill said, we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. He was talking about the bomb damage to the Houses of Parliament and reconstructing the chamber. And there was a proposal to reconstruct the Houses of Parliament in a circular style, like a lot of the European parliaments. And Churchill said, no. I like the adversarial style. I want 2-party systems. I want parties fighting each other. And so the Houses of Parliament was reconstructed the same way it was before. One bench and another bench at 2 swords' length. And that's how the British Parliament remains and how it behaves. Gene Kim's taken this quote and said, no, we shape our architectures, thereafter they shape us. This isn't just about Conway's law, it's much deeper than that. The architecture, the software architectures of enterprises shape how they're able to deliver change. Gene says, look, our systems evolve, they become larger, they become more complex, and coordination, most importantly, increases. And we can spend all of our time not delivering value, but just coordinating delivery. This picture, it's from a book by Roger Sessions. Roger Sessions is a fantastic writer on software delivery. He effectively, and I'll talk a bit more about this, came up with the idea of microservices 10 years before the Microservices book and papers were published in 2002. I looked him up on Twitter. He seems to have retired. He's now running a meditation practice. Maybe we can all learn something from that. But he talks about how, this diagram talks about what typical enterprise collaboration, systems of systems look like. And I show this to our teams in Saxo Bank because we're a fintech that's evolved over the last 30 years. And this looks very much like a subset. We have 400 services, roughly 10 enterprise databases, and everything connects to each other. And we spend so much of our delivery time just managing coordination. Now, the anti-pattern that I've seen and that we, the Sooner, Safer, Happier authors have seen is that scaling Agile and DevOps is just used to manage those dependencies. So great, get a scaling framework, we've got a bunch of dependencies. That's just a fact we've got to deal with. We really see those coordination overheads reducing agility and flow, but you can imagine a piece of functionality that you want to deliver actually touches, 3, 4, 5 of these. The dependencies you have to manage are huge. Imagine I've got an idea and I want to go from concept to cache or concept to learning. So great, hello world. Nice idea. To get to hello world, I've got to speak to the user interface team and the API layer team and the greetings service and the planet service and a team that manages the database. To work out which way I've got to talk to them, I've got to talk to some solution architects. So great. My idea is hello world. Solution architects say, hey, great. The hello bit goes to the greeting service team. The world bit goes to the planet service team. The API team, they need to build a bit there as well. And the UI team put some quotes around it, and the database, they've got some weird naming convention, but ultimately they're going to have a hello world table. Then we'll deliver something that looks a bit like hello world. It's close enough. The testing team they'll sign it off with a minor defect. And then eventually that will go live. Great. A few of you, I guess, will recognize this style of feature development for even the most basic features. So this used to say break dependencies. I think actually no, you can never break dependencies between systems because ultimately we work in a complex world and our things are interrelated. But minimize dependencies. Don't just get your scaling framework to manage those dependencies. Don't just implement DevOps to manage those dependencies. Change them, minimize them. Like I said, Roger Sessions, 2002, came up with an idea that looks a lot like a microservice, a software fortress. And he says there are 10 properties of those: autonomy, explicit boundaries, functions that are partitioned, dependencies defined by that, asynchronous dependencies, because synchronous dependencies are just as tight coupling, partitioning of data, no cross-fortress transactions, single point security. This stuff is just awesome, awesome design principles, and most important and most complex of all, keep it simple. Very hard. And the book is there from Microsoft, Simple Architectures for Complex Enterprises. I would really strongly recommend anybody who's interested in architecture at all, especially enterprise architects, to give that a read. So, hello world. The ultimate, the nirvana here is we refactor the organization and the architecture. Team topologies followers, Conway's law followers will recognize that we have to do both. And we have an autonomous team with an autonomous business capability that's able to greet the earth. They've just got a UI and a database and a microservice. Awesome. So, fantastic. If we do this sort of thing, we refactor our complex architecture into something more simple, then, well, we're done. Well, I've got 9 minutes left, so we're not quite done yet. What happens if we do that? Is that any better? Maybe. Maybe it's a little better. Maybe some of those dependencies are slightly looser, but I'm not sure it is. That's still complex. It's still complex. So one of the other anti-patterns we have seen is microservices theater. It's effectively saying, great, you have a microservice, you have a microservice, you have a microservice. Just go build microservices. We're done. That's it. No. There's a whole bunch more high-level design ideas, and these are old and new. Modular design from 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 in 72, structured design from Jordan and Code in 79, talking about cohesion and coupling software fortresses, from Roger Sessions, which evolves into the snowman architecture, because apparently that picture on the left looks like a snowman. Somehow, not sure I get it. Domain-driven design from Eric Evans, 10 deploys a day at Flickr in 2009, which turned into DevOps Days, which turned into DevOps. Microservices from Sam Newman and James Lewis in 2011. Dan North's seminal talk on software that fits in your head, which in turn, together with Conway's law, inspired the Team Topologies guys in 2019. One of the most important things I keep saying to people about Team Topologies is not just about teams. It's a book about refactoring teams and architecture. Loads of people talking about streamlined teams and platforms, but not about the actual really hard work of aligning your architecture to those teams as well. So this is a picture of Monzo banks. At the time, and I think this was 4 years ago, 1,600 microservices. I present this just about without comment, but I can't really resist comment on this. I'm not sure that this is particularly modularized or low in complexity. The pattern, we talk about anti-patterns and patterns. The pattern here is of evolution. I don't have time to talk about it, but Sooner, Safer, Happier talks about 2 types of evolution, gradual and punctuated. Please do have a read. But the evolution is going to happen. You're not going to go in a big bang to something that is radically reduced complexity. Where we're going in Saxo looks something like this: coexistence, the autonomous business capabilities, the better modularized forms coexisting with that tangle. The distributed monolith, which, as Kent Beck says, is way worse than a non-distributed monolith. And that will evolve. It'll continue to evolve. We may never get there, and we'll do things slowly and surely and optimize. A great book, article in the Harvard Business Review that isn't about software at all. It's just about business complexity. It says creating and reducing complexity might sound just like symmetries, but they're not at all. You add complexity to organization and people start depending on it. Other parts of the organization start to play into that complexity. And then reducing those dependencies becomes super hard. In the software engineering at Google book, there's a thing called Hyman's Law, which basically says that the more systems that depend on your API, effectively every behavior of your API, documented, undocumented, and unpredicted, becomes something that those teams depend on. And trying to reduce that, trying to change that becomes nigh on impossible. Does architecture governance come to the rescue? Maybe, but we've seen again an anti-pattern of architecture review boards trying to do stuff up front. This is the old school thinking in architecture. So a project is easy to govern. A waterfall project where you've got analysis and some outputs, you can review that. And then more design and some outputs, and you can review that. That is not where we are anymore in an agile and lean project where you're continually planning, you're continually analyzing and continually designing and releasing early and often. Then where does your architecture review board go? What are the design outputs that they get to review? Where are they? Well, frankly, they're not. And that's even when you're just in project mode. If you're in product mode, it's pretty much impossible. So we talk about black box governance. The things you should govern are realized architectures. And what you're governing is the white space between the black boxes. Maybe I need a new service. That's something the architect should govern. I want to talk from service A to service B. I want to add complexity to the organization. That's something the architect should talk about and govern. I want to do something different. I want to have a synchronous connection rather than an asynchronous one, which again introduces coupling. Well, again, we're not going to say no, but talk to us about it. And we'll give you an exception and record it as tech debt. And we put the paved paths in place to make things easier. And if you want to do something different, again, this is fine, but we want to make your lives easy. The other main pattern here is conversation. Going back to Kent Beck again, his forking branches in history. Kent Beck wanted to call agile software development in the Snowbird conference, he wanted to call it conversational software development. I love that. I often wonder what would have happened if that had been the name that they came up with. So this helps here. Instead of trying to have a one-off design review, you have an idea, the architecture will evolve. So have a conversation. Ideally invite more architects, get a community of practice, the law of 2 feet, get them together. For a product, exactly the same. Product will carry on releasing, get some people, coach the teams. And in particular, we're starting to look at this scaled organization. Effectively, the role of architecture becomes an enterprise DevOps style role. You're looking for that feedback, you're looking for those conversations, and you're looking to learn. The teams are doing it at team scale, and the Architecture Center of Excellence is doing it at enterprise scale, collaborating with the Service Management Center of Excellence as well. And ideally, this is all nested. So again, in Sooner, Safer, Happier, we talk that we use slightly different terms to team topologies. Effectively, value streams are nested. All teams are value streams. All teams deliver value, whether it's internal or external. So value streams are within value streams. And ideally, architecture ownership, again, is nested. The value stream itself has an architecture owner or an architecture outcome lead. And then at the high level, there's an architecture outcome lead. And then at the business unit, there's an architecture outcome lead supported by that center of excellence and the community of practice. All architecting for outcomes, architecting for flow, architecting for better value, sooner, safer, and happier. Thanks.